In college, I was an English major, and in my more egotistical moments these days, I still consider myself to be somewhat of a writer. I think the fact that I did go to college for English is the main reason why my full time job is this YouTube channel, because having pursued an English education, I acquired no useful or marketable skills during my university career. So, what else was I going to do for a living? Teach? That was me having a go at myself, by the way, not me having a go at teachers. Teachers are some of the most essential members of our society. They are obscenely underpaid and underappreciated. I love and respect teachers. That's me having a joke at my expense, not the expense of teachers. Especially public school teachers. They're amazing. Private school teachers can go to hell. Anyway, as an English student and someone who fancies himself a writer and sort of looks at things with a writer's mindset, from a writer's perspective, of course, I have one of these. And if you are an English student or a former English student or someone who has been or attempted to be a writer at some point in your life or taken a writing class, you know what this is. You probably have one of these somewhere in a box or on a shelf or buried under a bunch of stuff in the backseat of your car or whatever. You have one of these or have had one of these. This, of course, is the Strunk and White. The Elements of Style. It is a miniature little style book, composition book originally written by William Strunk and then updated and revised for more modern audiences, first by E.B. White, and has been updated and released in several more recent editions over the years. This that I have here is the fourth edition of the Strunk and White, and it's the little book, the little style book with all kinds of tips about composition and about style and how to approach writing. Some of it is technical, some of it is more a matter of taste, a matter of opinion, the opinions of Strunk and White. But I have found it an invaluable guide over the years. And because of this book, because of my English education and my background as a writer, I know about the importance of word choice. I know about the importance of saying what you mean in the most direct and interesting way possible. Like when you write, you must write in a way that will get people's attention and get people interested in what you have to say. And there are a couple of tips in the Principles of Composition section of the Strunk and White that I just want to briefly remind you of or inform you of if you've never had the book. Number 16 of the Principles of Composition is use definite, specific, concrete language. Prefer the specific to the general, the definite to the vague, the concrete to the abstract. If those who have studied the art of writing are in accord on any one point, it is this: the surest way to arouse and hold the reader's attention is by being specific, definite, and concrete. And then right after that, the very next principle, number 17 in the Principles of Composition in the Strunk and White, is omit needless words. Vigorous writing is concise. A sentence should contain no unnecessary words. A paragraph, no unnecessary sentences. For the same reason that a drawing should have no unnecessary lines and a machine no unnecessary parts. This requires not that the writer make all sentences short or avoid all detail and treat subjects only in outline, but that every word tell. Now, why do I bring this up at all? Why am I reading to you from the Strunk and White? Well, I was looking at the Washington Post this morning, perusing the Washington Post as I semi-regularly do, and I saw a headline for one of those fact-checker articles from the Washington Post. And the Washington Post's fact-checking feature is famous because they rate things with Pinocchios. If somebody's a big fat liar, they're like, oh, this statement has been awarded 4 Pinocchios because they're just completely out to lunch or completely dishonest or completely inaccurate or whatever. This fact checker article is from today, as I'm recording this, September 4th, and the headline reads, Trump appears to have misled Gold Star families on troop deaths in Afghanistan. Subheadline, Trump frequently suggests, as he did in a TikTok filmed at Arlington Cemetery, that an 18-month period without hostile fire deaths took place entirely in his presidency. And then the article goes on to detail the claim that Trump is making and has made repeatedly throughout his presidential campaign, but most recently made in a TikTok video that was shot against regulations, against cemetery rules at Arlington National Cemetery. You're not supposed to shoot campaign videos there, but he shot a campaign video there, and then his campaign released it on their official Donald Trump for President TikTok channel. But anyway, in that video, he claims, as he's speaking to one of the Gold Star families that were involved in this stunt with him, he says, "We had no deaths for 18 months in Afghanistan, and then Biden and Harris came in, and their administration screwed it all up, and people were killed," right? So he's claiming that when he was president, there were 18 months where nobody in Afghanistan was killed by hostile fire. That's not true. And throughout this article, the Post's fact checker, Glenn Kessler, goes into a little bit of detail of the research he did to establish that Trump's claim that he had 18 months where there were no deaths in Afghanistan, no American military deaths in Afghanistan from hostile fire, is not true. So why does the headline say Trump appears to have misled Gold Star families about troop deaths in Afghanistan? Why is the writer of this headline, I assume that Glenn Kessler himself did not write the headline, but why is the writer of this Washington Post headline being vaguer than necessary, using unnecessary words? Why is the headline writer committing such a gross and flagrant violation of the principles of composition laid out in the Strunk and White? Why exactly? And what are they accomplishing? What is the effect of that? Because if you read the fact check article, and I'll link to it in the description, what you will see is that there was no 18-month period while Trump was president. No continuous 18-month period where there were zero hostile fire deaths in Afghanistan for the United States. That period does not exist. So just on the face of it, Trump saying we had 18 months of no deaths, that's just not true. That's false. But the claim is only awarded 2 Pinocchios. Why is it only awarded 2 Pinocchios rather than 3 or 4? Because there was an 18-month period prior to the United States withdrawing troops from Afghanistan, where for that 18-month period, there were no hostile fire deaths from of Americans. Here's the catch, though. 11 months of that 18-month period occurred under the Trump presidency. The final 7 months occurred under the Biden presidency. So Trump is claiming that there were 18 months under his presidency where everything was great in Afghanistan as far as American troops were concerned, and there were no American troop deaths by hostile fire for 18 months. And then Biden came in, and Vice President Kamala Harris came in, and all of a sudden everything just completely went to shit. And everything, it's the kind of argument that Trump makes about when he left and Biden came in, regardless of the specific subject, whether it's the military or the economy or whatever. Everything was great when I was president, and we turned over this perfect country to Biden and Harris, and they fucked it up right away, and now everything's terrible and everything's a mess, and it's all Joe Biden and Kamala Harris's fault, right? That's the argument Trump always makes about everything. And that's the argument he's making about Afghanistan. Things were so good in Afghanistan. We had 18 straight months where there were no American military deaths from hostile action. And then Sleepy Joe and Crooked Kamala came in, and before you know it, our boys and girls were dropping like flies over there, and it's all their fault, right? That's not what happened. There were 11 months under the Trump administration, the last 11 months of the Trump administration, where there were no American hostile fire deaths in Afghanistan. And then there were 7 more months of the Biden administration. And then there were American troop deaths as a result of hostile action in Afghanistan. So it's a total of 18 months, but only 11 months of it was under the Trump administration. 7 months of it was under the Biden administration. So because of that, they're not giving Trump the full 4 Pinocchio rating. They're saying it's a 2 Pinocchio because there was an 18-month stretch and Trump's administration was in charge for 11 months of it. But Trump is claiming all 18 months for himself. Now, here's why I think that's important and why I think that actually makes the headline even worse. Because the headline says Trump appears to have misled the Gold Star families about the 18-month period where there were no hostile fire American deaths in Afghanistan. Trump knows that there was an 18-month period. Surely he must know, because 18 months isn't a number that he just pulled out of the air, right? He could have said 11 months, because 11 months were what he and his administration were in charge of for. He could have said 11 months. And that doesn't sound bad, right? If you say the last 11 months, he could even, I bet people would have even, because you know how much fucking grace the media gives him, he probably could have even said, for the last year of my administration, we had 0 American combat deaths in Afghanistan. He could have said that, and that would have sounded good. He didn't. He wanted to take the full 18-month period for himself. He wanted to take all the credit for that final stretch where there were no troop deaths before eventually there were, right? So he knows what he's doing. He knows he's giving himself 7 extra months that were actually under Biden's watch. He knows what he's doing. So he's not appearing to mislead. He's misleading on purpose for his own benefit. He's burnishing his record by claiming credit for 7 months that actually occurred on Biden's record. He's doing it on purpose. He's willfully misleading. Or, and there's another word for this, and Will Strunk, I'm sure, would appreciate any writer's effort to choose the right word to get their point across. And the word that I'm thinking of here is lie. He lied when Trump said to the Gold Star family that invited him to Arlington for that fiasco, we had 18 months where there were no American combat deaths in Afghanistan, and then Biden and Harris came in and it all went to hell. When he says that, he's lying. He's willfully, knowingly saying something that isn't true. Why doesn't the headline say Trump lies to Gold Star family when claiming credit for 18 months of no American combat deaths in Afghanistan? Maybe it's wanting to appear hands-off. Maybe it's a wish for journalistic neutrality. Maybe lie is just too charged of a word. They don't want to say lie. Oh boy, that's pretty strong. That's pretty stiff language. We don't want to say that Trump is a liar. Heaven forbid we say that Donald Trump is a liar. I think that's gutless. But why not just say for the headline, Trump misleads Gold Star families? Is it striving for accuracy, or at least trying to give Trump enough of a benefit of the doubt so that you couldn't be accused of being inaccurate with the fact check? Is that what's going on? Is that why you are so reluctant to just pin him down and say he misled people? I mean, with Trump, I admit it is a little tough sometimes to pin him down definitively on things he says, because he is such a profoundly inarticulate person, and he has such difficulty expressing himself and expressing the most basic, straightforward ideas in a way that has any sense of clarity to it. Like, I understand, I think if Donald Trump ever even held the elements of style in his hands, it would just catch fire. It would be like, a vampire holding a crucifix. It would just explode in his hands. Because everything that Donald Trump does as a communicator is exactly the opposite of what is preached in this book. It's the opposite of good writing. It's the opposite of good communication. He never expresses an idea clearly and concisely, ever. So as a fact checker, I kind of sympathize a little bit. That it can be difficult to pin him down and say, well, okay, what did he say here? And can we conclude that he is knowingly saying something false? Like sometimes it's hard to tell what he even means. So I get it. But in this instance, when it seems pretty obvious what he's doing, can we not just dispense with this vagary? Can we just not dispense with this gray area manufacturing and giving him the benefit of the doubt? Has there ever been a human being who ever walked the earth who deserved the benefit of the doubt less than Donald Trump? He did not appear to mislead on the 18-month period with no American combat deaths in Afghanistan. He misled. He lied. Do what Will Strunk and E.B. White would have you do, Washington Post headline writers, and tell the truth in a vigorous and concise way. That should be your fucking job.